Is your sleep a true sanctuary, a quiet harbor where the soul finds its necessary rest, or merely another battleground where the day's unseen wars continue to rage? We speak of burdens carried, of worries that cling like shadows even in the brightest noon. But what of the burdens that descend only when the world outside grows quiet, stealing the very possibility of peace? There are hungers of the soul that no earthly food can satisfy, and thirsts that water cannot quench. These we understand, or at least we acknowledge their presence. But consider this: there are patterns, subtle and strange, woven into the fabric of our nights, symbols that appear not by chance but with a disquieting purpose, and they possess a singular power to disturb the sacred stillness where true rest resides. Many live adrift on a sea of weariness, tossing and turning, attributing their unrest to simple fatigue, to the noise of the world, to anything but the whispers of their own deep selves, or the echoes of a suffering they carry. Perhaps unknowingly, they seek silence externally, yet fail to notice the specific, insistent language spoken in the vulnerable hours between dusk and dawn. It is not random unrest that plagues the heart when the body seeks its repose. No, often it is a signal, a signpost, pointing to a disquietude that demands our attention, a silent scream from a place within that yearns for light amidst the perceived darkness. Why do some nights feel heavier than others? Why does the mind conjure visions, fleeting yet potent, that leave a residue of unease long after the sun has risen? There are, it seems, certain keys that unlock the chamber of disturbed sleep. 9 particular patterns, 9 strange symbols that hold a peculiar power to shatter the peace that should envelop us. They are not always obvious. Sometimes they are mere flickers at the edge of awareness. At other times they manifest with a startling clarity, leaving the heart pounding and the spirit unsettled. To ignore these symbols is to remain a captive of the night, to continue the cycle of seeking rest, only to find a deeper weariness. What are these 9 signs? How do they manifest? And why, precisely, do these specific symbols carry such a heavy weight, capable of disturbing not just the physical body, but the very rest of the soul? This is a journey not into fear but into understanding, a path that requires a quiet heart and an open spirit, willing to look at what the darkness reveals. Do not turn away, for in uncovering these 9 strange symbols, we begin to reclaim the peace that is our deepest, most vital need. To miss even one piece of this understanding is to leave the door ajar for the disquiet to return, night after night. Stay then, and let us walk together towards the light of knowing. You stepped onto the path with a question in your heart, seeking the stolen peace that the night denies. We spoke of symbols, yes, strange patterns that do not merely flicker in the darkness, but possess a disquieting power over the soul's rest. It is easy to dismiss a restless night as the mere consequence of the day's hurried pace, the mind clinging to worries like a child clutching a worn toy. But the wisdom we seek, the deeper understanding of the heart's true state, tells us that often the disturbance is not random. It is a language, a difficult language perhaps spoken in the quiet hours when our usual defenses are lowered, when the soul is most vulnerable, yearning for the simple grace of rest. Consider first the ache of the empty hand. Have you felt it in the quiet? Not a physical emptiness, no, but a profound sense of lacking, of something vital missing. Perhaps a hand outstretched in the dark, finding nothing to hold, or worse, finding nothing to give. This symbol, this silent pang of the empty hand, often carries the echo of the world's profound hunger, the hunger of those who have nothing. Yes, but also the hunger within us to be more, to give more, It can be the quiet lament of a spirit that feels it is not living fully, not pouring itself out in love and service as it was meant to. It is the hand meant to soothe a brow, to share a meager meal, to hold another's burden, finding itself clenched or grasping at air. This feeling, this empty hand reaching in the night, can steal the breath from your rest, leaving you with a hollow ache that speaks of a different kind of poverty. The poverty of connection, the poverty of purpose. The poverty of a love that is held back rather than freely given. It makes the pillow feel hard, the sheets tangled. For how can the body truly rest when the soul feels this specific, profound emptiness? Do you recognize this reach, this quiet, desperate emptiness in the dark? And then, there is the silent cry. It is not a sound the ears can hear, but a frequency felt deep within the bones, a resonance of pain that is wordless, ignored. This symbol manifests as a pressure, a tightness in the chest, a feeling of overwhelming sorrow that has no origin in your immediate circumstances, yet is undeniably there. It is the echo of the countless silent cries that rise from the hidden corners of the world, the child who weeps unseen, the elderly person forgotten in loneliness, the heart broken in silence. When this symbol disturbs your sleep, it is often because your spirit, in its unguarded state, is attuned to the suffering that the busy day allows us to ignore or intellectualize. It is the burden of empathy, when it has no immediate outlet, the pain of knowing, even subconsciously, that the world is full of hurt, and that you are part of that world, connected to every tear shed, every groan uttered in the shadows. This silent cry presses down, making breath shallow, peace elusive. It is a symbol of the suffering we carry, willingly or not, simply by being human, by having a heart capable of feeling, even for those we have never met. Does this silent, unspeakable sorrow ever find its way into your quiet hours? Perhaps your disturbance takes the form of the unfinished weaving. Imagine threads tangled, knotted, impossible to smooth out. This symbol is the manifestation of life's complexity felt as chaos, the feeling of having too many loose ends, too many obligations, too many relationships pulled taut or frayed. It is the burden of the undone, the unresolved, the intricate messiness of existence that the mind cannot simply switch off. In the light of day, we manage, we prioritize, we compartmentalize. But in the vulnerability of sleep, the threads unravel. They wrap around you, restricting movement, stealing ease. This is not just about a busy to-do list. It is about the soul's desire for simplicity, for order, for a sense of completeness that the demands of the world constantly deny. The unfinished weaving reminds you of promises unkept, words left unsaid, tasks abandoned, relationships strained. It is the visual echo of internal clutter, the inability to find peace in the present moment, because the past is pulling threads and the future is weaving anxieties. It leaves you feeling trapped, suffocated, the mind racing on a loom that produces only knots. Is this feeling of tangled, unresolved complexity familiar when you seek rest? Or maybe it is the stone on the chest. This symbol is perhaps the most visceral manifestation of burden. It is the feeling of being crushed, weighed down by something immense and immovable. This is often the symbol of guilt, of deep regret that has not been surrendered, of a heavy responsibility that feels too much to bear, or perhaps the sheer overwhelming weight of perceived failure. It is the heart carrying a load meant for many, or a load that was never meant to be carried alone at all. The stone presses down, making each breath a struggle, each moment of rest impossible. It speaks of unforgiveness, yes, perhaps unforgiveness of others, but often most painfully, unforgiveness of the self. This stone is built of unspoken words, of missed opportunities to love, of moments when we chose the easier, less compassionate path. It is the physical manifestation of spiritual or emotional gravity, pulling you down, preventing the soul from soaring or even simply floating in the gentle waters of sleep. Do you sometimes feel this crushing weight, this silent stone settled upon your chest in the quiet of the night? And then, the unsettling presence of the closed door. This symbol is the profound feeling of exclusion, of being shut out, alone in a hallway while life or connection or grace happens behind a barrier you cannot breach. It is the symbol of loneliness, of feeling unseen, unheard, unwanted. It speaks of relationships broken or never formed, of reaching out only to find a door slammed shut, or worse, simply ignored. But the closed door can also be a symbol of our own making. The doors we close to others out of fear or judgment. The doors we close to grace out of pride or doubt. The doors we close to parts of ourselves that yearn for acceptance. When this symbol invades your sleep, it leaves you with a chilling sense of isolation, an ache of separation that no amount of blankets can warm. It is the soul crying out for communion, for belonging, for the simple reality that no one is meant to be an island. Is the image of a closed door, of being on the outside looking in, one that haunts your quiet hours? Perhaps the disturbance is the vision of the fading light. This is the symbol of waning hope, of spiritual dryness, of doubt that creeps in like a cold mist. It is the feeling that the inner light, the spark of faith or joy or purpose, is growing dimmer, threatening to extinguish entirely. This symbol often appears when one feels their efforts are in vain, when prayer feels like speaking to an empty room, when the struggles seem insurmountable, and the promise of dawn feels impossibly far away. The fading light speaks of exhaustion, not just of the body, but of the spirit that has perhaps given and given without feeling replenished, or has faced trials that have chipped away at its resilience. It leaves you with a sense of impending darkness, a quiet despair that makes the night feel endless, and the morning a distant, uncertain prospect. It is a profound disquiet, the soul crying out for the light it needs to survive. The light it fears is being extinguished. Does your inner light sometimes feel as though it is fading in the quiet solitude of the night? Consider now the broken mirror. This symbol reflects back not your physical image, but a distorted, shattered version of your inner self, or the world around you. It is the manifestation of regret, of guilt that twist perception, of the pain of seeing oneself or others as fragmented, flawed beyond repair. This symbol speaks loudly of judgment, often the harsh judgment we level against ourselves for past mistakes, for perceived weaknesses, for not measuring up to an impossible standard. It is the shame that makes us feel unworthy, unlovable, fundamentally broken. The broken mirror shows you a world fractured, relationships splintered, possibilities shattered. It steals rest by trapping you in a distorted reality, a hall of mirrors reflecting only imperfections and regrets, preventing you from seeing the whole, beloved person you are meant to be, or the potential for wholeness in others. It is a symbol of a fractured spirit, yearning for healing, for acceptance, for the grace that makes all things new. Do you ever see yourself or the world reflected back as broken, distorted, in the quiet moments before sleep? And what of the tangled path? This symbol is the visual representation of confusion, of feeling lost, without direction or clear purpose. It is the path ahead obscured by thorns and thickets, branching into countless directions, each one seeming equally daunting or wrong. This disturbance arises when the weight of decisions feels too heavy, when the next step is unclear, or when the journey of life feels overwhelmingly complex and difficult to navigate. It is the anxiety of uncertainty made manifest, the fear of making the wrong turn, of being permanently lost in a wilderness of choices and obstacles. The tangled path steals peace by making the future feel insurmountable, the present feel futile, and the soul feel adrift. It is the yearning for clarity, for a guiding light, for the simple assurance of knowing which way to go, even if the path is difficult. Does the path ahead ever appear as a tangled, impassable wilderness in the quiet of your mind? Finally, consider the whispering shadow. This is not the solid stone or the tangled thread, but something more ephemeral, more insidious. It is the subtle presence of fear, of doubt sown gently into the fertile ground of the resting mind, of anxieties that do not announce themselves with a shout but with a persistent, unsettling whisper. This symbol can represent the quiet temptations that seek to pull the heart away from love, the subtle suggestions that feed insecurity, the unseen forces that thrive in the darkness of our unawareness. It is the feeling of something lurking just beyond sight, just outside the circle of peace. The whispering shadow plays on our deepest fears, amplifying them with quiet insistence, making the familiar feel strange, the safe feel uncertain. It steals rest by introducing a quiet paranoia, a sense that peace is fragile and constantly under threat from unseen forces, real or imagined. It is the battle fought in silence, the struggle against disquiet that has no clear form, only a persistent, unsettling presence. Do you ever feel this subtle presence, this whispering shadow, in the quiet solitude of the night? These are the 9 whispers, the 9 patterns, the 9 strange symbols that can disturb the peace that sleep is meant to bring. They are not mere figments of imagination, no. They are echoes of our shared human journey, manifestations of the suffering we carry, the love we withhold, the fears we cradle, the peace we seek. Each symbol is a reflection, a signal from the deepest parts of ourselves, or perhaps from the world around us pressing in, reminding us that the need for compassion, for surrender, for true, abiding peace is constant. Even in the quiet of the night, they rise when we are most vulnerable, urging us to see what we ignore in the clamor of the day, to feel what we numb with activity. They steal our physical rest, yes, but their true power lies in disturbing the deeper rest of the soul. And acknowledging them, seeing them not as enemies but as signals, is the first most difficult step. For how can we find the light if we refuse to see the patterns in the darkness that hide it? How can we mend the soul if we ignore the symbols of its disquiet? They are there, present in the quiet, waiting to be understood, to walk through this night towards the promise of a more peaceful dawn. We have walked together into the quiet corners where the night reveals its secrets, where the symbols rise not from the earth but from the deeper soil of the human heart. You have felt the weight, perhaps, the emptiness, the tangle, the shadow, the 9 whispers that steal the peace meant for the soul. But remember, beloved one, these are not curses cast upon you. They are signals, painful, yes, unsettling, undeniably. Yet they are also messengers, speaking a language we have perhaps forgotten in the blinding light of the day. They speak of hungers that yearn to be fed, not with bread, but with presence, of cries that long to be heard, not with ears, but with compassion, of tangles that seek not force, but gentle surrender, of weights that diminish not when hidden, but when shared. They are the soul's way of showing us where the light is needed, where the healing must begin. They are the shadows that prove the light exists, even if currently obscured. The darkness is not the absence of God, but often the place where we seek God most desperately, where faith is tested and love is refined. Do not turn away from these symbols when they rise. Look at them, quietly, without judgment, but with the soft gaze you would offer a suffering friend. For in seeing them for what they are, manifestations of our burdens, our fears, our unexpressed love, we begin to understand their power, and more importantly, our own. The peace you seek is not found by battling the symbols themselves, but by addressing the source from which they spring, often a place of quiet lack or unacknowledged pain within. And here lies a quiet, powerful truth, whispered not in the night, but carried within the heart's deepest knowing. The symbols may disturb your sleep, yes, but the greatest symbol of all, the one that holds the power to gently dissolve the others, is the quiet, unwavering light of a heart that chooses love. Even a flicker, even a small act of kindness, given or received, even the simple choice to look with compassion upon yourself and others. That is the 10th unseen symbol, the symbol of grace alive within you. If these quiet truths have resonated with you, if they have touched a place within that yearns for deeper rest, know that you are not alone on this path. The journey towards peace in the quiet hours is walked by many who seek solace from the world's noise and the heart's disquiet. If this message has stirred something within your soul, let that stirring be seen. Acknowledge this truth with a quiet gesture. It is a small flame amidst the vast night. If you carry a burden or have found a flicker of light in these words, perhaps sharing your own quiet thought can illuminate the path for another walking in shadow. If this journey speaks to your heart and you wish to continue seeking the light amidst the dark, stay close. There is more to be found, more peace to be claimed. Share this whisper of truth, this quiet understanding, with any soul you know who lies awake searching for rest. For in connecting, in sharing the light we find, the night becomes less daunting, and the dawn feels closer than before.